Welcome back to the 13th Destiny podcast with Magnum. I'm your host, James Magnum Cook, and this is a very special episode. This is our 13th episode of the 13th Destiny podcast. I found it very interesting that this was the 13th episode. Wow, hard to believe that we were at the 13th episode, and of course, most of us have been traveling lately with the travel here to California. I'm currently in San Diego, California. And staying here for at least up to 8 days, maybe a little longer, depending on how long it takes us to work on Maura The Vampire Princess movie that I'm working on with the Magnum Caliber Films division. So that is what I'm here doing. We have a couple of locations that we're attempting to secure. One with my camera woman out here that I have hired to work out here, who's also a friend of mine. And so Martha, she's out there doing that right now, trying to secure a location for one of the scenes. And then of course Danielle and I will be trying to secure another. We thought we were going to have certain places to use, and we've had to make some adjustments. So that's kind of the situation going on right now. Speaking of adjustments, and Danielle had to make an adjustment this morning at the hotel I was staying at, and I had to, because I was going to be there all weekend, had to make a little change to be a little closer to everybody, and especially my actress and also the co-host, whenever we're able to have her as a co-host on the 13th Destiny podcast. And yes, I am trying to slow this down a little bit and make this a little clearer, but I'm still having fun with everything, so I'm having a good time and everything's going okay. We just had to make some adjustments, and originally I wasn't supposed to be in here until today anyway. I wasn't supposed to be in here until the 2nd. The Yuma, Arizona, having to leave that hotel and then come into the hotel that I had to move out of this morning. I'm telling you, so it's been kind of an adventure the last couple of days that I wasn't expecting, unexpected adventure. But everything's working out pretty good. I do want to mention that the Kickstarter seems like it's getting a little sluggish, so I'm going to try to update it a little bit more and see if we can push it along, because we really need to get that budget in the next 31 days. So this movie is being completely funded by me at this point, and we have shot some scenes by me funding but I've had very limited what we could do. So we definitely need to get that Kickstarter moving along, and thank you to those who have shared it, especially my lead actress, Kayla Perkins, and her mother. So really appreciate that, and appreciate anybody else that's been sharing it. Appreciate director Joseph Kelly, who is well known to a lot of people in the independent film world as well, who has become a backer. Which I've also, like I said, I think I mentioned before that I've backed a few things on his films as well over the years. So really appreciate the giving back to me after things of helping him. So really appreciate that. He's currently out, and if you don't know Joseph Kelly, he is currently out right now promoting the Clown Motel 2 movie that he did, that he shot at the actual Clown Motel. And if you don't know anything about that, you ought to check that out. Unless you really are scared of clowns and stuff like that. But it's still kind of a very interesting and creepy place in a way. But obviously he shot there. I think maybe some of us just don't, I guess we work in certain things and we just don't see things the same way, as some of the general public does. But that's not really a big deal. If you scare me, that's great. I would love it. So, yeah, as long as we survive it. But well, that's all good. So that's where we're at right now. So we're trying to get that all worked out in the next day or so. And like I said, my camera person I'm supposed to meet with her tomorrow and also meet with Danielle. So we're just running into some problems at the beginning of this. But like I said, originally I wasn't supposed to be here till today anyway. So the 13th episode of the 13th Destiny podcast. As I said, that's amazing that we're at 13 episodes. I really am looking forward to getting the guest episodes on more, have a little bit more interaction like I did with Jay and like with Rick. It's just taking time to get everything there, but we're getting there. And I do appreciate, I am seeing that people are subscribing to the podcast. I do see people are supporting the podcast. That is absolutely awesome. I really appreciate that. I appreciate everything of any type of help we get on anything we do. And a lot of things on independent films to the podcast, all that kind of stuff. We can't always do everything alone. And so every little bit, especially when we're new, the podcast is like the newest venture of anything I've done. So really appreciate that. And so that's how that went. And I'm going to go back to this getting out of the hotel this morning. So I had to call, I'm staying at Holiday Inn, so I had to call the IHG headquarters and all that. Got it all straightened out to switch over. And I went out of my way to tell them that the manager at the one I was at was just absolutely, it had nothing to do with the hotel, had nothing to do with her, because she was very, very pleasant. And of course, I come to find out when I go down there and I talk to her, they didn't tell her anything. Go figure. Well, maybe it's a corporate policy. I don't know, not to tell, but I was like, it wasn't a bad thing. It was a positive thing, and but it worked out, and we got to know each other a little bit better and everything, and that was kind of nice. So it kind of worked out, and we had some pretty good engaging conversations prior to this about some of the things about shortages and problems that they were having and all that. So hey, it was an interesting morning all the same. So now, speaking of supporters of the podcast, listening to the podcast and some things that were asked of me recently, I'm going to tell you what was asked of me. Apparently, the girlfriend, or the former girlfriend, I will say, ghost story stuff has been, outside of Jay's and Rick's, has really got a lot of play, and has been really interesting to a lot of people. And especially some friends who are supporters. And so I got asked this question, and ironically, I do know some more stuff about northern Georgia, northeast Georgia, and that whole area. I lived there for 8 years, and there is I'm going to tell you about this, and if you live there, you know this, well, at least or you should know this if you live in that area. I also lived with another, actually with I guess you wouldn't call her my really first real girlfriend, in that kind of situation. I was between 2020. I think I was between 20 and 21 when this was going on. And anyway, she's, I won't name her because, we've been on civil terms and stuff, and, because I think I spoke to her a few years back and everything's fine. But I'm just going to name her because she seems to have taken an anti-social media, kind of disappeared too. So I don't want to really name her, but I will tell you that this whole area, I knew pretty well, starting with when we first met. I was actually in between where I'd been a private investigator and where I couldn't do anything in Georgia because I had to turn 21. So and of course that's between states to states. Of course now you can't do anything on the private investigation. As far as I know, I believe everything has turned to 21 now. In all the states on the private investigation. So that's not a big deal. So there were some differences back in the day, back when I was a little younger. So that gives you a little history there of why I was able to do certain things that other people are not able to do now because they made changes. Of course, everything changes for some reason. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, sometimes it's just, it just changes. So anyway, I had been a kitchen manager for Shoney's at the time when me and her met, and she and her, I don't know. Anyway, I'm not gonna worry about the proper English right now. But anyway, so we met there, and we met before I became a manager, by the way. So there's a long, really good story about that, but I'm not gonna go into all that. I don't know. It's kind of funny in a way because I kind of laugh about it. It was one of the first times in my life that someone ever tried to fire me, and it was one of the first times it backfired. And often it backfires. Sometimes I've won really well, really quick, and I've kept the job, but and then sometimes it didn't work out. But but that's another story. But it's funny. It's funny how a lot of things in my life, that was supposed to be like negative, end up being positive, and they backfire on the very people that are trying to do something. to me. I don't know what that is. My dad used to say that he never really wanted me as an enemy or something to that effect, because he was like, man, things just go bad for people that mess with you. And that's not exactly what he said. I'm not going to go into what he said exactly, but I kind of sitting here laughing about it in a way. So, but anyway, that's not really the story tonight. So the story is this, and it is well known, and it is considered an urban legend. And like I said, I was living with her in a place called Lula, Georgia, after I had become a manager. And of course, part of that story is that the assistant store manager didn't like me. The store manager really loved me, and we're still friends to this day. Matter of fact, he's a judge in Toccoa, Georgia, and I had went back and seen him several times, and even signed books to him and stuff. And so both him and the sheriff of that area are real good friends with me, and think a lot of them, got a lot of respect for both of them. So I guess because we've known each other long before we were into anything else, so that's hearsay or whatever. So here's the situation. Okay, so we moved in together and everything, and and in between this, I left being the KM there and went back into security for a while. And I would, shortly after that, after working this particular security job at Lakeshore Mall in Gainesville, Georgia, I would eventually go back to Toccoa, and I would eventually open the security consultant firm, which is on my LinkedIn, and I think a lot of people know that and know that I owned it for several years. So Lake Lanier, there's an urban legend about Lake Lanier, and Lake Lanier is in that area, and of course Lakeshore Mall, obviously working the security there. I wasn't really in knowing everything about that as much as I do. I mean, I did, and I've heard those stories, and especially, I guess, when you think about it, in a way, I guess this kind of lends a lot of stuff back to the Crystal story, and pardon me, I'm adjusting the mic. Having a little trouble with this chair in the hotel room tonight. It's kind of reminding me, and this is a shout out to my former security partners and that listen to the podcast. This is a shout out to you guys because this chair is doing the typical thing that used to do at the desk where we used to work all together. Doing the let's fall down tonight, and then you have to put it back up. But I kind of got a kick out of that tonight too. So anyway, the urban legend about Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier was a massive human-made lake, and it has a dark history. And in order to get the depth they wanted, the U.S. government bought or forced over 250 families, 15 businesses, 20 cemeteries, so they could fill over the 50,000 acres of prime farmland with water at the bottom at Lake Lanier. It's an entire ghost town, left as it was when the government flooded it. So here's the thing. The lake is very famous for, unfortunately, mysterious deaths and accidents. And it ranges from boating accidents to drowning to cars going off the road into the lake for no apparent reason. Yes, no apparent reason. Survivors of various accidents have reported feeling invisible hands were dragging them deep beneath the water. Now, all those wrecks I've ever had in my life, I can tell you this. There are a lot of things that go through your mind so there could be a combination of things. But, when you think about this, and it has got that dark history to it, and like I said, I lived in that area, and I did hear some of these stories. And so when I was being asked by one of the people that listened to the podcast, they said, you lived in 2 different states. Well, technically I lived in 3 different states, but let's just say I lived in South Carolina for a short period of time. Not enough to really, I guess I kind of lived there for enough to consider that I lived there for a little bit. But obviously the 2 states I lived in the most were my home state of Kentucky, and I lived in Northeast Georgia for 8 years, mostly in Toccoa, and also I lived in Lula Gainesville and Athens part of the time. It was kind of more of a back and forth thing. I still had the permanent residence basically at my parents when I was younger that were living in Toccoa. So anyway, this is a very it's a very interesting. There's an urban legend to it, obviously, but there's been a lot of deaths there and a lot of accidents, and it does make you wonder. It makes you wonder what the situation is. I don't know. I'd have to check in with some of my paranormal people that I'm friends with, the investigator ones, and I don't know if any of them have ever done anything or checked any of that out. Not the ones that I know personally. But it is. It's very. It's a. I don't know. I think I'd have to look it up because I don't have the actual numbers in front of me. But I do know that there's been a lot of mysterious deaths there, and there's a lot of people in Georgia that think the lake is cursed. And I heard that a lot. I did hear that. I heard that when I lived in Northeast Georgia, and I heard that when I worked at Lakeshore Mall as a security officer when I was like 21, prior to starting my own security consultant firm in Toccoa, and going back and also kind of working both restaurants and security stuff. I kind of did both because it was a small town, and so I did a lot of combination stuff, and you can tell that on my LinkedIn. If you look on my professional LinkedIn, you can see, you'll go, wow. But that kind of lends itself to the whole thing that I did up until recently. I always worked 2 and 3 jobs, and I don't know. I guess I'm kind of working now because I'm working the podcast, I'm working the the modeling a little bit still. I'm working the filming, and I'm also still doing some other stuff. So so I guess in a way, it's just that one permanent. That's just that one permanent job that I had for 18 years, which was actually one of the longest jobs I ever had, because I don't know. It's just I'm kind of more of a free-spirited person and likes to go. I mean, I've worked for other people, but it seems like always working for myself has been more fun, and certainly now it is. But it is definitely something that a lot of people think is cursed, and so it's something to check out. So if you're interested in checking out more stuff about Lake Lanier, look it up. I won't go in because, like I say, I don't have a lot of stuff in front of me because I'm sitting in the hotel. I mean, I could pull it up right now if I needed to, but I think it's something that if you're really interested in that, and some of you said you were, that's one that I do know about. And ironically, and I'll tell you this, the ghost story about Crystal and everything, the former girlfriend, I will tell you that Banks County is not that far from all that either. So that's in that same general area, but it's not, the place where we were at was not right on Lake Lanier or anything like that. But now the other one, the other place that I lived with when I was a little younger with this other girlfriend, yes, that was very nearby. And of course I did work for Lakeshore Mall as a security officer when I was 21 at that location, and that is right there. Lake Lanier is right in the backyard. I mean, it's literally right there. So anyway, that is the story for tonight, and I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to know more about it, please check it out. There is a lot of information out there about the mysterious deaths and the strange things that go on at Lake Lanier, Georgia. And I love the people of Georgia, so don't get upset with me for talking about that, because it's out there and y'all talk about it too. And I live there, and you're kind of like my second home state. So I hope everyone's having a great night. And for those that wanted to know about that, if I knew any other stuff, and there's probably some other stuff I know too. My head, sometimes I have to take a minute and remember things about stuff, and so that's one I did know about. So everyone have a great night, and I'm going to try to get back on the filming work and everything. I don't know that I'll update the podcast every single day at this point, because I am here in San Diego, so I'm not traveling. But if there's any good stuff to put on that I can put on, I will absolutely come on, talk about it, and we'll go from there. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying your morning, your evening, your night, wherever you're at. Thank you for listening to the 13th Destiny podcast with Magnum. and may God bless you.